Is your brand ready for AI? I'm not just talking about ChatGPT prompts, but the full spectrum of AI transforming retail media today. Join me for an essential 5-part series with AI strategy expert Lauren Schiavone. Over the next 3 weeks, we'll move from basic AI literacy to advanced concepts like agentic AI and the future of consumer path to purchase. Whether you're a brand, retailer, or agency, this series will give you the roadmap you need to navigate retail's AI revolution. Good morning and welcome to the Retail Media Breakfast Club. I'm your host, Kiri Masters, and every weekday at 6 a.m. Eastern, I bring you candid and real discussions in the world of retail media and marketplaces in just 10 minutes. So bring your own cup of coffee and we'll get smarter about retail media together. So I'm here with Lauren Schiavone, who is the founder of Wonder Consulting, an innovative AI-focused consultancy dedicated to empowering leaders to thrive in an AI-driven world. With nearly 2 decades of experience as a Procter & Gamble executive, Lauren combines deep expertise in consumer insights, brand strategy, sales leadership, and enterprise transformation with cutting-edge AI knowledge. Her mission is to demystify AI by translating complex concepts into actionable strategies and leverage its power to accelerate business growth. So Lauren, you've been doing a lot of training engagements around AI, and I'd love to first just dive into what are some of the big questions that particularly retailers and brands are looking to solve with AI.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say training engagements usually come in one of 3 areas. The first is what I would call foundational AI literacy. So actually only 5% of companies today are providing training and development to upskill their employees in the area of AI. So AI literacy overall is actually still very low today. So many people are simply just asking the question, how do I get started? And so if this is the case, I begin with my foundational training. That includes a brief overview of AI with a focus on generative or Gen AI. And I'm just going to pause and explain that for a second to make sure everyone is caught up. Generative AI is a subset of AI, and it's called generative because it generates things like text, images, video, code. And the reason I focus on generative AI is because generative AI is what gives us non-technical leaders AI superpowers. So you no longer have to be a computer engineer or data scientist to harness the power and the potential of AI. So then within generative AI, I actually focus and go deep into ChatGPT or a different preferred LLM. And here's why I start with a deep dive into a tool like ChatGPT or a similar LLM. The world of AI is so overwhelming, even for me some days, right? And there is a new tool every day, even sometimes a new tool every hour. But here's what I tell people. Do not get distracted by the shiny objects. Focus on mastering a tool like ChatGPT. Most people are just scratching the surface of what is possible with a tool like ChatGPT. And when you combine your own expertise and experience, a very important part of the equation, with the capabilities of a tool like ChatGPT, it will give you superpowers. So then within a tool like ChatGPT, we cover what is it, what can I use it for, what are use cases, how do I use it? I also like to provide access to a custom tool that I created within ChatGPT for folks to begin to identify relevant use cases for their role. Oftentimes, I find that to be the hardest part of adoption is really understanding how for me in my specific role do I leverage this tool. And we also talk about a lot of personal use cases as well, because even using it personally is very helpful for 2 key reasons. One, it will help drive that habit change. Habit change is really hard, and using a tool that you've maybe never used before or haven't used much is a hard habit to change. And then the more you use it in your personal life, the more you will start to understand how it works, and it'll open your mind to the possibilities of how you might be able to use it in your work life. The second area is when we get sort of more specific to my function or my role. Okay, so now I understand the basic function or foundation of generative AI. But what does that mean for me? So for example, maybe that's marketing. So with a more senior level team, I'll spend time reviewing higher level strategic implications that leaders need to think about. For example, we'll talk about how the path to purchase is changing in an AI-driven commerce world. And then maybe with a broader audience, we'll talk specific functional use cases. So for marketing, maybe that's things like content creation, gaining consumer insights, developing strategy. And then the third area focuses on what I call driving AI transformation across the enterprise. So often leaders are excited about AI and may have begun to start experiment with AI, but very few are driving true business growth and transformation from AI. Many leaders are struggling to move from what I call random acts of AI to true integration into business processes to drive transformation. And for this, I have a 5-step framework, which serves as a practical roadmap for leaders and organizations to be guided through their AI adoption and acceleration journey. So it starts with assess. We understand, where are we at as an organization? What's the literacy of our organization? What are the beliefs of our leadership? What is our current technology? I actually have a scorecard that I like to use to sort of assess this phase. So once you've assessed where you are, then you establish, and that's when you start to understand, okay, what are the goals and priorities we want to set as we think about AI? Here you also develop an AI council. Think about an AI council as a group of people that are responsible for delivering AI transformation in the organization. We also review the AI council health checklist. Once we've established those goals, we get really clear on how do we want to experiment? Where do we want to experiment? How do we want to pilot? And what's really important here is disciplined experimentation. You need to have clear metrics. You need to have a clear sponsor. You need to be clear on what's the go, no-go decision. Run it for no longer than 90 days and be clear on sort of what you learned and where you want to go from there. After experiment, you go to accelerate. So scaling what works and driving that across the agency. This is also where I think a lot of the training and the upskilling comes in. So general AI training is important and it plays a role, but oftentimes the best training you can do is when you change your process to integrate AI and then train folks on, hey, this is just the new way that we're going to do things. And then the last phase is what I call adapt. So this is all about future-proofing both your business and your organization. And I always tell leaders, do not wait till you've perfected first steps to get to adapt and starting to think about, how do you future-proof your business and your organization? The organizations of tomorrow will not look like they look today. And the services that you provide as a business also will not look the same as they do today. Also, what's really important as you think about adapt is change management. And when it comes to AI transformation, it's like the technology is the easiest part. What's really hard is change management. And that boils down to having the right culture, having the right communication, and finally, accountability. So how do you hold leaders accountable to this change? So overall, those 3 areas is where we have the most interest and questions.
Nothing to it.
Any questions on those?
Yeah. I want to recap a couple of things. So start with the personal use cases. And I think this is such a great point. And you do a terrific job over on your LinkedIn of sharing like how you're using AI as a consumer and as a parent, which I think is a really smart way to get started and just get used to this tool and start to sort of experiment a little bit in your personal life with personal finance, with planning activities, with creating birthday invitations for a party. These things all just build a bit more of a muscle. And then the second stage in that role-specific requirements, I think that's really, really helpful. I feel like there was this first wave of starting to talk about AI, which I personally saw all over my social media feeds, which was learn ChatGPT and become a millionaire. Like there's this gold rush kind of, that's how it starts. And I'm like, yeah, but how does a CPG marketer use generative AI? Like there's not a lot of that out there. So that's what I feel that you're really tuned into.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because to find that education, in my experience, you have to find a practitioner. You have to find someone who has sat in this seat or a similar seat and understands your work, because so many folks working in AI, or maybe some of the consultants in AI, they're great at that high level strategy, but when it comes to how do I use this day to day and how do I use this in my job, there's just a bit of a gap because they haven't been a practitioner. They haven't sat in some of these roles and done this work.
Yeah, 100%. I think that you're right about that. I don't have anything to add.
Well, we're going to wrap it up there. We're doing a deep dive on AI in retail specifically. This is exactly why we're doing this, because Lauren comes with a depth of experience in CPG. And so we're going to be specifically talking about the use of AI within a brand, within retail media. So we're going to dive more into some subsequent topics. Just make sure you're subscribed to the podcast to get future episodes.
Well, that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Retail Media Breakfast Club. We meet here every day at 6 a.m. Eastern. So be sure to subscribe and get your daily dose of insights, trends, and hot takes in the world of retail media and marketplaces.